Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. I'm here with Helena Patience, who is the CEO at Entreflow, and we have today's startup chat. So usually we do this on IG Live, but if you caught our little note to community, we had a bit of technical issues, but wanted to make sure we got this content out to you. So really excited to be able to connect with Helena again and be able to dig into this conversation. So startup chats at Volition, we like to talk about kind of like all different things that impact startups at any point in your journey. And today we'll be talking about year-end accounting, but also really focusing on the year ahead and planning for 2021, which I think everyone's has on our mind, but doesn't really know what's going to happen. So I'm really curious to hear about like lessons learned of bringing that forward into 2021. So I'm Melanie Ewan, by the way. I am the co-founder or one of the co-founders and managing partners of Volition. And we elevate entrepreneurship through startup coaching, as well as through skills-based training and community events. So it's really great to have you here, Helena. And we have, I've had the honor of being able to talk to and get to know the team at Entreflow in the past. And we have like a really in-depth kind of like origin story of Entreflow on our blog right now. So if you're watching, we're not going to dive into that origin story so much here today, but if you want to learn more, you can head to Entreflow, not entreflow.com. You can head to entreflow.com anyways, but head to volitionadvisors.com/blog, and you can just scroll down and see my interview with Ian that talks a little bit more about that background. But let's just jump in here today. Helena, let us know who you are and do give us a little bit of background on Entreflow and what you do in the ecosystem.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Melanie, for having me here today. It's lovely to chat with you again. So my name is Helena Patience. I'm the CEO for Entreflow Consulting Group. We are a Vancouver-based public practice firm, CPA public practice firm, licensed recruitment agency. But really what we do is we work with small, medium-sized businesses, lots of startups, to really help them get the right foundation in place from which to grow. So we focus on the people, the processes, and systems, and that looks like accounting and finance, that looks like software implementation, that looks like HR support. So we do lots of things to support small businesses. And our vision is really to elevate entrepreneurship around the world by helping owners have the right things in place to do that effectively. I'm also a CPA, so I'm a CPA CMA, and I've worked in HR and in finance for years. So that's my background.
Amazing. And if you're watching this on, I think we're going to have this on IGTV and on YouTube. If you're watching this, please do submit questions anyways. We always check them. And if you have any questions along the way, do let us know. This is definitely an area that's not my strong point. I loved math when I was young, but I didn't go in that direction and just seem to have lost everything along the way. And I imagine that probably people you work with, that's the case as well. And kind of speaking of which, we're proud partners of Entreflow, and one of the things we're working on right now is a promotion, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But as part of this work we've done together, we were able to publish a blog on both of our websites right now. So if you head over to those blogs or those websites that I mentioned just a moment ago, you can check out that. And it's about top tips from Entreflow to prepare for your accounting year end in Canada. So one of the things you touched on at the beginning of the blog, which kind of like you just reminded me of in terms of me not knowing much about accounting, is one of my initial questions was just like, what is this year-end accounting, and like what is involved in a year-end accounting engagement, which I understand is what it's called, with a firm like Entreflow. So what would that look like? Why would we want to do it? If you can dig into a little bit more around what is this
What is it?
Yeah, what is it? Just that big question.
This magical thing.
Why are we here?
We're here because the CRA started an income tax act. No, so not the CRA, the government. So at the end of your fiscal year, you need to, report back to the CRA about how your year went and figure out how much tax you owe them. That's the main, regulatory requirement there. But from a business perspective, you need to have a good picture of what happened. So that you can figure out, well, you should know that on a monthly basis, but at least, it's the it's the end of year, we got it done, here's where we landed, and really start to think about where you want to head for the next year. So from our perspective, we're looking at, it all comes down to the data. So we need to look at the bookkeeping data, make sure it's up to scratch. If your bookkeeping isn't done or reconciled or poorly done, or there's lots of things sitting in uncategorized accounts, then we'll go through all that and make sure it's all up to scratch. And then and obviously work with you to figure out, what are some of the major events that happen for the year, and make sure that those are all documented really well, especially for some of you who might be raising right now. It gets really interesting on the balance sheet. You want to make sure that all the investment money that's come in, or convertible debt, or and make sure that there's nothing that was missed that was maybe purchased from a personal account instead of a business account. That sometimes happens when you're starting out. We want to make sure that you get that reimbursed eventually. We also look at compensation. So if you want to get a bonus or take some dividends or what have you, we make sure we get that all tied up with a beautiful little bow. And then from there, we pass it over to our tax specialist here, who will do the tax return and an NTR. And that's a notice to reader for the corporations out there. And it's basically a set of financials that you can basically say, this is a snapshot in time, and be able to, take that to whoever needs to see it if that's needed. And it's basically kind of the last little step there. We'll also review the results with you too, to say, hey, how did it go? And here's what we're seeing, and here's some recommendations and whatnot, so that you're set up for success for the next year.
Right. Okay. So what I'm curious to understand, for those of us who, or those in our audience here today who might not have a bookkeeper currently on hand, like just always around, if they haven't engaged in an accounting firm, or have only done that kind of once a year, what would they be looking for? Like if they're starting their search for a bookkeeper, so that, let's say this time next year, they're feeling a little bit more confident about where things are at. Where do you start? What should you be looking for, so that, like you mentioned just now, sometimes you work with, well, I'm assuming you work with people who you look at their books and it's very messy, and maybe someone did work on them throughout the year. But how do we know? How do we know if we're kind of engaging, especially as startups? How do we know if we're kind of engaging people who understand the startup space and all those pieces?
For sure. So at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. Okay. And most people go into business to make money. You don't want to cheap out on one of the most important roles in your organization. I'm not just saying this because I'm an accountant, okay? But you don't go cheap on your bookkeeping. Don't get your wife or husband to do your bookkeeping. Don't get your mother to do your bookkeeping for you. Don't hire a cheap, fresh out of school bookkeeper that's never dealt with a startup environment before. Startups have a lot of complexity. There's a lot of decision making about how we're going to do things, and that is just not for a beginner bookkeeper. Okay, so what ends up happening is people will cheap out on the bookkeeping fees, and then they'll come to us, and then they'll end up having to pay us more than if they just paid us in the first place to fix the bookkeeping.
Right.
That's a complete waste of your limited resources in this day and age. And I mean, I can say this, but really the proof is in the pudding. We have multiple serial entrepreneurs that come back to us and say, I messed up the first time. I'm never going to do that again. And I recognize that I just need to do it right the first time, this, with my next company. So I do it right now. So it's not something to cheap out on. You don't want to be doing your books in Excel. There's cheap accounting software out there that is so robust and can handle so much now. So you need to make sure you've got the right software in place and get somebody who's competent using that software. Okay. And honestly, a lot of startups will maybe do their own bookkeeping for a little while, and that's okay. You're probably a better person to do that because you know what the transactions are than getting a cheap bookkeeper who doesn't understand what those are. But ultimately, you have to think every hour that you're spending on the bookkeeping is pulling you away from building your business. So what's your business worth to you, right? So is something, a question you should ask yourself. And I know it's difficult because you might not have the big budgets and everything that you would want to be able to do this, but I'd say it's probably better to do it yourself and get some help, obviously. To get set up. We do a package where we'll get you set up on QuickBooks Online or Xero. We'll teach you how to do what you need to do. We can check in with you every month or every quarter just to review and make sure that you're doing things correctly and you haven't messed it up, or you're not doing your bookkeeping. And then by the end of the year, it's a cost-effective way to get good quality data, and you know how you're doing on a regular basis. Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of a more level one. I just need the cheapest option possible. That's a way better scenario than hiring a cheap bookkeeper. Okay?
Right.
Or your mom sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
It's
Okay.
because it's
So
really awkward when you have to fire your mom. I've had to deal with those situations.
I can imagine. Yes. So I'm curious about, I know we all have different year ends. So if we're looking to engage, to have one of these year end accounting engagements, when should we be planning to start to engage an accountant
For
so that we feel
sure.
prepared?
Yeah, so for those of you who are December year ends, probably good to reach out now. We want to get your books closed up by early Jan. The dividend deadline is the end of February. Oh dear, I think it is, yes. We might have to blurb that out if I mess that up. Too many dates. T4s are due at the end of end of December, February. Sorry, I'm still stuck in 2020 here. And so you want to meet up as soon as possible in January just to get everything closed up in time. We've got to get get filed by 6 months after your, for most businesses, 6 months after your year end, but you have to pay any taxes owing 3
Okay.
months. So technically we got to get it wrapped up within the first quarter, essentially. Now, for
Okay.
those of you who have your year ends at other times of the year, consider yourself lucky because not many countries let you do that. It's super helpful. If you have a business that's really seasonal, it's really common for retail companies because you might have a lot of returns in January and that just kind of messes things up. Or for companies that have a really quiet season, say like in March or April, whatever, maybe they'll use that as their year-end time. So it's up to you to decide, and you declare that when you file your taxes for the first time. So you can choose whatever date you want. And so it doesn't have to be your incorporation date. Probably wouldn't be because they're usually not the 30th or 31st of a month.
Yeah.
But if your year end is throughout the year, then just bear in mind that we've got that T4 and T5 deadline. You'll have to reach mid-year at some point just to figure that piece out.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So I feel like we have kind of covered year end a little bit. And we only have a short amount of time to kind of dig into things. And I'm sure there's lots that we could talk about on that. But I know also that in talking to you, you seem to have I really appreciate your approach to planning for the coming year. And as I promised in the preamble here, we're not just going to talk about year end accounting. We're also going to talk about what we have learned in 2020 and how we can apply that to 2021. Like, how do we deal with uncertainties? Are there uncertainties? Is that what should I be doing right now? And I know like you've talked about like the how what am I trying to say? You've talked about how like finances and operations and business planning is all intricately interlinked. So it's not like you were just going to talk about planning for your finances or planning for accounting. And we're going to talk about all of the things combined. So I'd love to hear your kind of take on this when people come to you asking, how do I plan for 2021? And a little bit about lessons learned from this year that we can apply, which is just a tiny question.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting year. We do a lot of fractional CFO work with our clients. So we do a lot of budgeting, forecasting, KPI management. So right now is a perfect time for you to be thinking about planning for your business for the next year. Now, this year has been a very interesting time from a forecasting perspective. I don't know how many times we've reforecasted some of our clients in completely redone budgets. That's what we need to do. And this 2021 is still going to be a little bit uncertain, at least for the first 6 months, I would imagine, and possibly for the rest of the year. We don't really know. So, but without a plan, you don't know if you're heading in the right direction. So it's really important to spend the time now to plan out the year. Think about what your big hopes and dreams are. How are you going to get there? Start doing the things that you need to do to get that queued up so that you can reach that success that you're hoping to reach throughout the year. And so that's your budget. And then you need to think about getting some forecasting structures in place so you can track how you're heading towards your plan. So I know it's we're coming into a quieter time of the month, but it's also a really good time for entrepreneurs to sit down and plan out their year if you haven't started doing that yet. But really important to help you to monitor how you're doing through these odd times, so that you don't have a surprise at the end of the year and look back and say, did I do everything that I could have done to change the results here? So it's a really important time to sit down and plan and to think about the types of KPIs you want to track in order to reach that. It's not just about having a budget in place. I can go create a budget. That's not really helpful, right? Unless you're actually putting some action steps in place or key initiatives or something with your entire team to get them planning on what they have to actually do, each month or each quarter throughout the year to help you reach that, and track it and look at those results on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper or a document that nobody does anything with.
Yes, this is such an important one. This is something we talk about when we're working with entrepreneurs in our community who are building their ask, if they're raising, and they'll sometimes just kind of throw a number out there like, I'm going to ask for this much, but they haven't actually done the steps to figure out what their milestones are, and what resources they require in order to achieve those milestones, and therefore what is your ask. Like there's an actual process to this. So I really appreciate your approach of kind of like starting with the end in mind, like looking at where you want to be. Actually, I'm curious, would you look at like where you want to be next year, where you want to be in 3 years? Like how do you plan out, how do you go about planning out those like longer term milestones? Then you can work back from
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Like you certainly have to take into account the exit strategy for the business owner. Right. We expect the business to carry on into perpetuity, but at some point you're going to die. So there's going to be some exit at some point, right? But it is good to know, like, are you looking, because you're going to apply different strategies depending on what your exit plan is, right? So if you're trying to grow quickly and exit, or sell it, or do some kind of partnership, or this is your lifestyle company that you want to just kind of carry on to sunset with, right? We're going to look at things, we're going to plan differently. I think it's right now, because it's so easy to get short-term focus, it's good to widen that up a bit. Let's look at maybe 3 years from now where you're trying to get to, and then what's possible for 2 years, and what's possible for this year, and then break it down. So I think 5 years is a little bit too far for most people, but like having a sense of where we want to get to in 3 years is helpful. Okay. It's kind of getting us in the right direction. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. And then I think it's a matter of what you've talked before about with me is scenario planning, and sorting out like what your plan A, B, and C is, and that we've had a really good experience, I guess, or practice doing that this year. So are you like, how are you approaching that with your clients now as they're looking at 2021?
For sure. Yeah. So we basically get that first budget in place. And then from there, we can, clone it and change the variables and see, okay, so if we hit like 75% of our revenue target, then what happens? Yeah. What if things kick off and we and we're like 125% of our revenue? What are we going to need to have in place in order to support that? And it doesn't make sense. Do we need to add new people? Do we need to get a larger space? Do we have, inventory purchases, and are we going to hit different levels of MOQs we need to worry about? So there's lots of different factors in there. So it's good to play around with that and see kind of what is the best kind of scenario from a profit and cash perspective, because sometimes growing is not a good thing from a cash perspective, and you can get into really sticky stages when you're growing too quickly. So you want to make sure that you're in control of the growth there, because you might want to slow down growth sometimes, or you might really want to dump a whole bunch of money into marketing and grow quickly because that's what you need to do. So having the ability to have that good budget in place, and then be able to play with some different scenarios will help you to get really clear about what you want to have happen. And same with the forecasting as well. You can forecast different best case, worst case is kind of the common ones people talk about, but there's lots of different things there. Might be, what if we expand into this region? What if we dump this product and go into this product? Right now it's been an exciting year from a pivoting and scenario perspective, because people are looking at any lever they possibly can to help their business. And so it's been really creative and exciting time working with companies, because they're like, okay, I know I'm really tied to that, but let's just throw it out. We'll try this over here for a bit.
Yeah, that's incredible. Cool. My question was around what it's been like for you as is title accountant, CPA, chartered.
Yeah, CPA. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know the terminology. What it's been like for you over this past year, kind of like on the I guess more personal side for you, like where I'm understanding like what it's like for the companies, but what is it for you working accountant during this past year and looking forward to 2021?
Yeah, for sure. I guess the best way to describe it is we're the frontline workers for business. So we've been they're really at the front lines trying to help companies navigate quick decisions that they've had to make about their business in order to save their business on many occasions. We've had business owners who've had to lay off every single staff member all in one go, and that was really heartbreaking, especially if they've never had to lay a staff member off before.
Right.
We've had
Navigating those conversations, and
yeah. So it's been very emotional with a lot of tears, a
yeah.
lot of frustration, especially at the start with we had all these stimulus plans that came out, but we didn't have the information about the mechanics of how they're going to run for so much after the fact. And so we had this weird thing that was happening where a lot of our clients were finding like their employees were getting really frustrated because they're hearing from government that there's all this money available and there's all these things in place to support them.
Yeah.
And the employers are going, well, we're just waiting for the mechanics to actually access that funds, but in the meantime, we're sinking. What do we do? And so we were seeing a lot of conflict between the business owners and the employees because of that, because it wasn't really communicated that you will be able to access that cash in 2 months from now, or 1 month from now. And so, the employees were like, well, why aren't you doing anything about it? And we're like, we can't do anything about it yet. So, it's just the timing of things and the nuances there were really challenging. We had a lot of companies see increased turnover because employees were obviously just, it's not been easy. It's not been an easy time to work. And so like efficiencies down or efficiencies increasing like crazy because they're at home and not distracted. It's all over the place. So, this year has been an important year to help people put performance plans and like performance reviews in place, not for the sake of like, big brother, but more just like, let's have a 360 review. How's this going for you? How's this going for me? What do we need to do? What do we need to focus on? What do we need to change in your job so that this is going to work for everybody? So there's been a lot of HR support. So a lot to say, it's been a lot heavier, and everything that we do is we need to do more to support them. So it's been a lot of long days for our team.
I bet, And how are you feeling looking at 2021? What's your perspective on the year to come?
I wish I had a crystal ball. I feel, we've got the vaccine coming. I've heard from scientists that we only need about 50% of the population to get vaccinated in order for it to be fairly effective.
Right.
So if we had to get everybody vaccinated, I think that would be a much bigger hurdle. And so even after that, though, there's still going to be a bit of a trickle. So, and I think people are going to be cautious with spending. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of shift in people changing jobs over the next little while. Now that what is it? Sorry, there's so many plans. My head, but the EI programs are kind of starting to dry up a little bit. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement on the workforce. We're already seeing that already. So people are going to be able to, make quick changes with their teams to support the business. And there's probably going to be a lot of onboarding and supporting new hires and all that sort of stuff from an operations perspective. But should see a lot of people kind of seeing that improvement. I think we should start to see some good improvement over the next couple of quarters here.
Interesting. All right. Thank you for that. I noticed I just threw that question at you out of nowhere, but really appreciate kind of getting your perspective on what it's been like. I feel like you have a very unique perspective, having worked with all these different companies who through a really difficult time and talking about money and people. I mean, those were two of the hardest topics for businesses this year. I mean, always the hardest topics, I guess, but this year in particular. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so I think to wrap us up, I have kind of two things I want to touch on. One is, we have a bit more of a line of sight of what we need for our year-end accounting. Hopefully everyone out there knows when your year-end is and kind of already thinking about it, depending on where it is in the year. We understand a little bit more about how we're going to plan ahead. Ideally, if you're sitting down doing your planning right now for 2021, thinking about maybe 3 years ahead and then working back from there. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I mean, obviously, Helena is a wealth of knowledge, and we really appreciate the team at Entreflow. So we did partner on this promotion this year to kind of help
Yes.
people, whether it's your year end right now or later on in the year, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And I'd love if you can give a little bit more details about what that promotion is. So in your language, I can speak to the volition piece, but I will
For
hand it
sure.
to you to speak to your piece.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we have an offer we'd like to share with everyone just to help out, help out the community. So it's a $500 discount on your year end. So that's to get your T2 and your NTR completed. And then as well, an additional $500 towards some kind of accounting service. So we have lots of different things we do. Like I said, you might be setting up your bookkeeping, your software, doing some catch-up bookkeeping. It could be even just sitting with you and coaching you to help you understand how to do your bookkeeping better. So, or we can do a business review. We can take a look at your books and give you some insight into how are things looking, not only from a bookkeeping mechanics perspective, but how's your business looking, and maybe some recommendations there. So if any of that is would be of value to you, feel free to reach out to us. So that's $500 off the year end, and then $500 off accounting services.
Amazing. And then, as an
And
added
then
bonus, you get another $500 credit.
there's more.
But wait, I love it. You get an extra $500 credit with Volition, and you can work with any of our advisors. We have 11 advisors who all specialize in a different topic, not these ones that Entreflow works with you on, but we work on pitch and presentation, on sales, marketing, due diligence, money modeling, all the things kind of thing. So you can check out who our advisors are and what they do at volitionadvisors.com/advisors, I believe. You can see what we do there and check that out. So check out another link I'm going to throw at you, and we'll make sure to have these in the notes as well. So you can just head down to the show notes, I think they call them. But if you head to entreflow.com/ this is going to be a long one. Corporate tax and year-end promotion special offer. I believe we have a Bitly version of that somewhere that I will put in there as well. That's a lot shorter. But if you check out Entreflow and this corporate tax and year-end promotion, you should be able to find that on the line. And then you have until January 15th to actually, can you walk us through the process? So if someone lands on the page, they have till January 15th to do what? How does this all work?
Reach out to us. Just reach out to us. We'll have a conversation, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, perfect. All right, so you have till January 15th to do that. So make sure to check it out. It's a New Year promotion, and we're really excited to be working with Entreflow on that. Oh, someone's trying to call me. I'm gonna X out of that. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, yes. So another question I like to always end on, or second to last, I promise, is there anything that we didn't touch on yet here today that you wanted to have this space to speak to the community about?
For sure. I guess in the spirit of gratitude, I think right now is a really good time to take a moment to express gratitude to all those that have really helped you out this year. I think it's been an interesting and unique year for everybody. So thank you, Volition, for being such great partners. You're fabulous and love you to bits. But yeah, I think it's a really good time to take a step back and be grateful for everything that happened this year, despite the challenges that you might have gone through, and to take a time to really appreciate your team and all those that have kind of helped you along the way. It goes a long way. Be kind to yourself. If it's been a really hard year, a lot of it has been out of our control. So, there's been a lot of difficult times for everybody, but just know that everybody's kind of going through the same thing, and we're all doing our best, and just, have self-love, in this time, because it's kind of what we've got to go with right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And,
absolutely.
And just, the sky's the limit. Don't have any. I find a lot of business owners have self-limiting beliefs about what's possible for them and their business, and it's all mindset. So take some time over the break here. If hopefully you're having a break, it's hard as a business owner, but to just think about, like, what is the dream big. What's the blue sky vision that you have for your business, and go after that, and not what everyone else might think is possible, or base it on what's happened this year, but really take this time to just reset and dream big, because amazing things happen when you do that and you're open to possibilities.
I love that. I heard someone say recently, we're all in the same ocean, but on different boats when it came to COVID and this year, and like being um, aware that we are in it together, but you're also dealing with it in your own way, in your own context, and your own family and your own business and all your owns. And so, like Helena was saying, just kind of being aware of that and being a little bit more gentle, being gentle with yourself, I think is
Exactly.
absolutely wonderful. And then dreaming, let's just start dreaming again, because we
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. So I really appreciate that. And kind of in that vein of gratitude, then the final question I always ask is, what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Oh, what is one thing that brings me joy? I my children are obsessed with Lego right now.
Ooh, that's fun.
Oh, Lego creations are really fun. I love Lego.
Yeah,
That's from a personal perspective, but from a business
that's awesome.
perspective, I find it so inspiring speaking with business owners about what their big dreams and hopes are,
Mm,
and getting enrolled and what's going on for them. There are so many cool things that people are doing right now that I wish I could just shout out to the world that they all need to know about, because it's really inspiring being able to listen and hear and have that sharing and hopefully be able to support them in some way, shape, or form.
yeah. Yeah, I find it to be an absolute privilege to be privy to all of these incredible dreams that people have. So if you're watching this, let us know if
Yes,
you are open to sharing. Get in the comments and let us know, or just private message us, whatever you want,
for sure.
and what your big dreams are. And on not note, actually, what I was going to say was you can find Entreflow at entreflow.com. You can also find them, I believe it's just at Entreflow on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah,
And they're on YouTube. But where would be like the best place if someone wants to reach out to you, Helena? Where's the best place for them to get in touch with you?
yeah. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Happy to have a chat. Always happy to have a coffee with anybody. So if you want to just jam on an idea or talk about a challenge, always happy to have a conversation. So just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Helena. It's been really great to finally have this conversation,
Yes.
and I think it
Take two.
worked. I hope it worked. Yeah, I hope it worked. So if you're watching this, let us know if it didn't work, or let us know if you have any questions or comments or want to hang out with us. I think we're both open to that. So really appreciate you being here. I would love to have you back. I feel like there's lots of things that we can dig into. I'm super interested in the people side of things that you do, the HR side of things.
Yeah.
Would love to dig into that sometime. So hopefully we'll have you back in the new year. Otherwise, this is our last IG Live. This is our last interview of 2020. So I hope if you are celebrating some sort of holiday over the next few weeks, or if you have been celebrating recently, I hope that you have a really lovely holidays. And regardless, I hope you're having a safe and healthy and joyful in tiny
Mhm.
ways or large kind of time right now. So it's not an eloquent way to say anything these days, but I wish you all the best is what I'm trying to say. So
Likewise.
yeah, thank you so much, Helena.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.